When you think about Sega's classic beat-em-ups, you probably picture Streets of Rage and Golden Axe. Those games are great and all, but I wish more people would talk about Alien Storm, the 1990 arcade brawler that was later brought to the Sega Genesis. Believe it or not, this largely forgotten action game has one of the craziest endings of all time. I'm honestly not even sure how to explain it, you're just gonna need to see it for yourself. So turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're gonna spoil the story and ending for Alien Storm. This is Game Over, the early years. This is the story of an alien busting group that works undercover as food truck operators. Obviously. When aliens unexpectedly show up in the big city, our bug-busting heroes spring into action in an attempt to exterminate the pests before they get out of hand. As it turns out, the alien invaders are able to mutate humans and take the shape of potted plants. But don't worry, because Garth, Karen, and Scooter are on the case. Unless you're playing on the console version, where the names have been changed to Gordon, Carla, and Slammer. There aren't a ton of story beats in Alien Storm. We basically just go from one location to the next in an attempt to save humans and get to the bottom of the alien invasion. This involves shooting up a grocery store, running over the bridge, and then protecting this electronics store as both a beat-em-up and a first-person shooter. Thankfully, they didn't blow up every TV because Universal Amusement News brings us breaking footage of another alien outbreak. This is in the museum district, which eventually leads to a fight through a car dealership and into the industrial part of town. There's an insane shootout in the factory, but the real story is the boss fight outside. He looks like a witch and shoots electricity. He also morphs into this thing, and then whatever this is supposed to be. Where did all those eyes come from? Anyway, we eventually blow him up, but we're far from done with this alien outbreak. We decide to chase the alien ship, which takes us out of town to a more rural part of the country. We shoot it down, but that just means that we have to fight the entire crew of the ship in the middle of nowhere. And then we go inside for another fun shootout. The aliens apparently don't like this, so the main ship comes down and gobbles up our heroes. Literally. I mean, the ship looks like a weird alien head, complete with eyes, a nose, mouth, and face. It's an unsettling design. Inside, it looks pretty much as you would imagine. Kinda gross. We fight the usual cast of characters, which leads to a choice. Do we go left, or do we go right? It doesn't really matter, because it all leads to this asshole. Man, I hate this guy. Once we kill him, it's off to shoot up the giant brain and save the day. Now, I don't normally do this, but before we get to the arcade conclusion, I want to pause the game and talk about the Genesis port. Don't worry, the story is pretty much the same, so you're all caught up. I say pretty much because the console port gets rid of the whole food truck angle and rearranges the levels. But let's be honest, it all ends up leading to the exact same point. After about 20 minutes of intense action, here's what happens next. Alright, now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and get back to the arcade version. We're at the final fight and just about ready to win, but before I unpause, I first want to put out a warning that if you suffer from epileptic seizures, then maybe just skip this ending. I mean, things are about to get real flashy. Okay, so are you ready for a crazy musical ending? Well, get a load of this. What the hell was that? There's so much to pick apart here. Okay, so right off the bat I have to say that it's a shame this game never got a sequel. It definitely feels like the Genesis game is setting us up for more adventures, but it just leaves us here. It seems that humanity will just never know what happened to their saviors. I guess this means that they went back to their secret identities as food truck operators. But it does mention at the end that their names will forever be engraved in our minds, so it shouldn't be that hard to track them down, right? Also, the food truck angle was completely dropped in the Genesis game, so I don't know. Honestly, I'm probably more confused by the arcade ending, which feels more like an accident than an actual ending. It straight up turns into a funky little music video, seemingly pulling sprites out of other games at random. And then it flashes the Golden Axe, Altered Beast, and Shinobi logos for some reason. It's like the kind of thing a lonely programmer made in their off time and then stuck in at the last second to pad out the ending. It's just baffling, but it's also kind of mesmerizing. And then there's the thing at the end where you're greeted by the dwarf from Golden Axe. Is it that Gilius is a time traveler, or is it something else? Just so many questions. I'm telling you, Sega really needed to make a sequel to this one. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, The Early Years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every Monday. Now here's the question I have for you. Which version of Alien Storm had a better ending? On one hand, the Genesis game actually had closure. However, on the other hand, the arcade version had that musical number and the cameo from the dwarf from Golden Axe. You decide in the comments below. In other news, we have a busy week ahead of us. Look for reviews of Velocity G, Bloody Waves, Tech Support, Tardy, and more. We're also going to dip into the greatest moments of GamePro on Wednesday, so I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.